Thank you for clicking on this video. This video is about the Affordable Homes Fund 2021 to 26 CME. And it's to show the IMS screen differences between the Shared Ownership and Affordable Homes Programme 2016-21, so the previous programme that we've run. I'm Susan Roberts. This video was recorded in December 2020, and the screens that you'll see reflect IMS at that point in time. It may well be that some things have been tweaked after I've recorded this video, so please bear that in mind throughout. So who is this video aimed at? Well, it's aimed at existing users of IMS rather than new users, because it's not going to tell you how to do everything in IMS. It's literally just going to show you the updates, the bits that have changed within the system to make life a bit easier for those of you who have worked with us previously and done bidding and so on. So the video is about partnerships, offers, offer lines, in the 2021 system for those bidding via CME rather than those looking to bid for a strategic partnership. At the time that I'm doing this video, the development of profiles and schemes screens hasn't happened as yet. That will follow later on. So it is purely the bidding side of IMS that I'm going to be showing you the differences in, rather than the the claiming side of IMS. So I will look specifically at changes in the screens for partnerships, offers, offer lines, and I'll look at both firm and indicative lines for that. I'm going to then go on to some reminders about bidding at the end of a bid round, this is essentially the stage that we're in at the moment. Just a reminder that bidding is CME bidding, so Homes England can see your data as you are entering it into the system. And one final reminder is that CME is about delivering firm, deliverable schemes. So any data that I'm going to show you in IMS has been set up specifically by Homes England for this video. It's not real provider data within the system, so there's no data issues with what I'm going to show you on the screens. So first of all, the changes to partnership screens. So there's only one change there, and that is to the programme period, which now shows as 2021-26, and that's a programme period that you'll need to use for your bidding under this programme, and that programme period now appears throughout IMS in all the programme period lists. Those programme period lists have also been tidied up for some time periods that were previously not used within the office system. They were used elsewhere within IMS, but that's now been tidied up at the same time. So what about the offer screen changes? So you can see an offer screen, a dummy offer screen over this side of the screen. First thing to say is that there's a new offer type, as you'd expect, and that offer type is Affordable Homes Fund 2021-26. So that will appear in all your screens from now on in terms of an offer type. When you look at the screen here, you'll notice that in terms of sub-product types, there are 4 sub-product types. If you to look at what's missing compared with the 1621, the one that's missing is specialist rent. And that's because specialist rent is now being done differently, because it can be done on both affordable and social rent schemes. So that specialist nature has moved to being identified on the unit details screen under products that I'll show you later on. You'll also notice that there's no tab up at the top of the screen for conversion summary, and no conversion button at the bottom, because conversions are part of this programme. Okay, so that's the offer screen changes. So I'm now going to look at offer line changes on a firm scheme. And there'll be quite a few slides on this, and I will be going into IMS to do a demonstration of some changes that are easy to show as live in the system. So going through the tabs in turn. So first of all, the geography tab. So at the time that I'm recording this, there are no actual changes in IMS. I'm recording this just before release. It's possible by the time of release that the screen has changed slightly. So you used to select the operating area and then go through to select the local authority. That is now about to be changed, and you will just select the local authority, and it will automatically populate, not with an operating area because we've moved away from operating areas, but it'll move to a government office region and minimum geography, but they will automatically populate for you. All you'll do is enter or find the local authority code to enter at the top. Just to note that there's also, and I will mention this later on as well, there's also been a change in indicative bids. They will also now ask you to identify a local authority, and they must be by local authority only now, rather than by operating area or government region. But I will mention that one again when we come to look at indicative. So the next changes are to the site tab. So I've moved to the end of the 3 tabs, and I'll come back to the one in the middle shortly. So in terms of the site tabs, that does look, in terms of the bit of the offer line, it looks identical, but when you actually go into the detail, you find that actually there's been a change on the section 106 tab. So we used to have something like 9 questions here. We've now only got 4 questions, and they're all yes, no. They open up depending on your previous response. Those changes will apply to all new sites that are created in all programs from now on. So what we'd like you to ensure that you do for the 21-26 programme is that if you're looking to bid for phases of a site that you've already bid for in previous programmes, can you please input a brand new site for that, to make sure that you're picking up the right site details and have got the right section 106 information. So next, I'm going to look at what's under the detail of the products tab. So the standard information that appears at the top is identical, but what you'll notice is that the tabs have got some changes to them. So we've got a design tab and we've got an MMC tab. Now, don't worry if all of those don't show on your screen initially when you're putting in an offer line. The design one certainly depends on some earlier things that you've input as to whether that comes up. So there are your changes to your tabs, and I'll now go through those tabs in more detail. So first of all, the organisation tab. So it looks identical at the top. You'll work in exactly the same way, but you'll notice at the bottom of that tab, there's a new question. Are you intending to work with SME contractors on this scheme? That's a yes, no drop-down box. When you get to your profile level for this offer line, you'll be asked to identify who that organisation is at that point. Can't show you that because as I identified at the start, at the time of recording, that part of IMS hasn't been developed for the 21-26 programme. So next, the unit details. So the accessibility categories that you'll see on a unit screen are about to be updated very shortly. They might be updated by the time of release. They're haven't been updated on the pre-release version that I'm using currently. So they will be changing. There'll still be 4 categories, but they'll now align with those elsewhere. So I'll show category 1, category 2 accessible, category 2 adaptable, and category 3. So the next change is that on shared ownership lines, the assumed average initial sales can now, you can now input values between 10 and 75% in that because of the change in the programme, reducing the 25 to 10%. Some of the types of housing mean that there are different changes elsewhere in the units. So general needs generally hasn't changed other than those changes above. But when you enter some specialist options other than general needs, then you do get some changes in the screen. So I'm going to go into IMS and I'm going to show you those so that you can see what appears depending on what you've actually selected. So the next screen you'll see will be me in IMS. So I'm now in IMS in a firm offer line. Let me click on products and let me go into affordable rent as a sub product. So it's a firm offer line. Okay, so let me go to the unit details and open up the one unit type that's there. So this currently is a general needs offer line. You can see at the top that there are 3 tabs that are greyed out. So I'm going to make some changes here and we'll watch as I also change the one below which of these 3 tabs appear, and then I'll look at each of those 3 tabs in turn. So when I change it to older people, you can see that revenue funding and happy principals appear. If I click on disabled and vulnerable, I also get the client group. So vulnerable, let me select one of the housing types. I've just selected one of them. They'll all give me the same answer. So let me go through the tabs that are there as the extra ones that have appeared now. So revenue funding. So what you would do is if you had any revenue funding, you would click the box for any that applied. If I go to client groups, I can select one item in the list. It will only let me select one. So I've already clicked here on item P. So this is the list for the program. If you want to read the list in more detail, please pause the video so that you can see that list or look at the list in the guidance. In terms of the happy principals, you are asked to identify which your scheme fits with. So click and select, and on this one you can select multiples that are there. Okay, let me move to the rent tab. So there's a new question at the bottom here. So for any reason, are these homes considered exempt from the right to shared ownership? If you select yes, a box will appear for you to enter appropriate comments in. There's one other change actually on unit details before I take you back into the presentation. So I'm now in a shared ownership line and I'm back in the unit details. So what type of housing does this unit provide? Let me click on that drop down. If I put older people in, I get asked a question now, are you using the OPSO model? So that only appears on shared ownership when you select older people. So the disabled and vulnerable, you don't get asked the question, but the older people, you do get asked the question. So now I will take you back to my presentation and continue with the other changes that are there. So next we move on to the design tab, which is a new tab. Now whether the design tab appears or not depends on what you've identified for the units. So definitely new build gives you the design tab. So you will use this to identify which under the National Design Guide your scheme is expected to fit against those characteristics. The questions at the bottom only get asked if you've got more than 10 homes, so 11 homes. So you select yes, that you've done that assessment. Then the box at the bottom opens up and asks you to identify how many green lights that you've had. So you just enter that number there. So next, there have been a couple of changes in the capital contributions. DPF has certainly been removed, and I think there's been one other change. So for completeness, I've shown you what the contributions are for all of the tenures. So if you want to read these in details, please pause the screen to look at what's under there. So in terms of the next tab, which is scheme costs and scheme forecast, so the next two tabs, there have been no specific changes to those tabs. They're exactly as they were under the previous programme, other than there's new long stop dates for this programme and for this programme only. So starts need to be achieved by the 30th of September 2025, practical completion by the 31st of March 2026. So 1621 programme long stop dates are unchanged. They're exactly as they have been for the programme. So there have been some changes on the scheme progress tab, but it all depends what processing route that you've used. So if you choose purchase and repair or lease and repair as your processing route, so lease and repair is with the empty homes side, and both appear. Sorry, the purchase and repair appears on both empty homes and non-empty homes. So the two parts of the screen that are here, the planning and acquisition have been changed and replaced by new sections. One about property identification, one about property identification, and there's a new question at the bottom on works. So on this screen, I've shown you what the options are under each of the drop downs. If you want to read those in more detail, please pause the screen to read those yourself. So another change is to the additional information. So those questions have been changed, and they do depend, as they previously did, on information that you've input in the offer line earlier on. I'm not going to go through all the questions here, but they are covered in the written guidance. So if you want to see that, please look at the written guidance for IMS guidance for the programme. So next, there is a new tab for MMC, and this is the final tab on the offer line screen. So it's vanished off the front of the screens on the product, and it's now one of the individual tabs. It's set out in three layers. You complete layers 1 and 2, and depending on your answer, you then might have to complete layer 3. So under the primary structure, the drop down, it's a drop down rather than a select from. So up here, I've shown you what appears under there. Again, at this point, if you want, pause the screen to see the detail of what's there. So next, to look at the offer line changes for an indicative offer line. So to re-mention, if you skipped the earlier part of the video because you were only looking at doing indicative offer lines, they now have to be by a single local authority. The operating area and minimum geography are no longer required as you input that data. So when you go to the programme profile, that is still by quarters, but the quarters have been aligned to the long stop dates for the new programme. The additional information changes that are on firm lines also appear on indicative lines. Just to note, the delivery profile screen, because it often confuses people who've not put in an indicative for quite some time. Initially, those values are set to 50% start, 50% completion. But as you go into profile and you split your schemes out into individual scheme profiles, and as you're splitting out of that bulk, then it will split to the normal programme percentages based on your processing route. Okay, to end, I'm going to do some reminders. So these reminders are about submitting. So at the start of a program, which is where we are now, so you'll all be initially submitting your first offer to Homes England. You need to validate every offer line that you are submitting, and you have to submit all lines that are set up there. You can't put some in and decide you're going to submit those later. The system will only let you submit what is there, and expects all of those that have been input to be submitted at the same time initially. You will then go to your offer and you will validate and submit the offer. And that's a bit that's different. Those of you who've been used to bidding under CME outside of your first offer will have been validating and submitting via offer lines. So just remember, we're at the start of a new program, which means you have to validate and submit via the offer initially rather than via the offer line. So if you do need to make any changes or additional offer lines before your offer has been approved, the steps that you will need to go through are to unsubmit your offer, and then either unsubmit or refer to provider every offer line that you wish to make changes on, and then you'll validate and submit offer and offer lines just as at the start. So initially, it's not going to be possible for Homes England to allocate offer lines in IMS, and that's until the profile screens have been created within the system. So it might be that your initial offer lines get accepted, but we haven't fully allocated your offer line within the system, your offer lines within the system, and you want to do input some more, in which case you'd need to do this unsubmit and then create some new offer lines within the system for us to be able to, for you to be able to input, and then for us to be able to look at it. Just as a reminder, once your offer has been allocated in IMS, you can submit any additional offer lines, and you do that by submitting the offer lines once they've been validated and submitted. Next, some reminders from our affordable housing growth team. So all bids should be for firm deliverable schemes where details of the planned development are confirmed and costed. Before you submit a bid, you should discuss your proposal with relevant Homes England affordable housing growth contact. And if you don't have a normal contact, then you can contact the inbox that's on screen, and somebody will get back to you with who you need to talk to. We expect you to have spoken to the local authority about your firm schemes and be clear how the scheme is meeting local need and addressing affordability. And finally, some general reminders. So although I've done this video, there is also written IMS bidding guidance, and that's on the IMS guidance and training page of our website. So there's a couple of times that I've referred you to look at that rather than show you the detail on screen, which would have been difficult to read on screen. There's also the capital funding guide that has been updated to cover the 21-26 programme. But just note that the Capital Funding Guide, CFG, covers multiple programmes, so ensure that you're looking at information on the right programme, particularly if you're looking for anything that's on shared ownership, because there are some changes between the two programmes. There's also the funding guidance, which is apply for affordable housing funding on our website, and that contains lots of links to other information like sections of the capital funding guide and so on. And if you still have queries that you can't find the answer to, then please email the inbox that's on screen, which is 21-26 inbox for queries. So thank you for listening to this video, and I hope you found it useful.